evening. Welcome to Scotland at 7. In a late edition, unfortunately, the scheduled edition had to be delayed due to events in Westminster today. Which brings us to this evening's main item of news, which is, of course, Brexit related. Today, the Brexit deal is to be, well, we're hearing that the Brexit deal is to be debated again tomorrow. The Leader of the House, Andrea Leadsom, has announced today that Parliament will discuss a motion relating to Brexit on Friday, but it was not yet clear whether this would result in a formal third vote on the government's Brexit deal. The Speaker, John Bercow, had already ruled out voting on the same motion for a third time, and any motion would have to be significantly different to allow a vote to take place. Ms Leadsom had said, "We recognise that any motion brought forward tomorrow will need to be compliant with the Speaker's ruling, and that discussion is ongoing, and the motion will be tabled just as soon as possible, and obviously later today." Now, we know that that has now been done. There had been some speculation that the government would propose to vote only on the exit agreement and attempt to leave the political framework to a future vote as a way to get around the Speaker's ruling. And actually, this is indeed what has turned out to be the case.
Have it ordered just before we come to the sittings motion, which I shall invite the Leader of the House to move. I have a very short statement to make. I am pleased to report to the House that the Government's motion for tomorrow's debate complies with the tests set out in the 24th edition of Erskine May on page 397, that motions which are the same or substantially the same must not be put to the House more than once in a parliamentary session. The previous meaningful vote motion encompassed both the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration. This motion covers the former, but not the latter. I am glad that the principle of the House determining a motion definitively, once and for all in each session, has been accepted and upheld, and that that principle cannot be circumvented by the assertion of a notwithstanding clause or even a paving motion. In short, the motion is new, substantially different, and in conformity with the requirements of my ruling of the 18th of March, reiterated on the 25th and 27th of March. We come now to the sittings motion. I call the Leader of the House, Andrea Leadsom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the motion standing in the name of my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, which has now been tabled. Can I start by saying that I recognise that changes to the sittings of the House, agreed at short notice, can create inconvenience to members and their constituents. I know how important constituency work is to all of us, and I do regret not being able to give more notice. I do, however, believe that all our constituents expect the House to continue to make progress at this crucial time. To be of assistance to the House, I can again confirm that should the House agree this motion, it is intended that the sitting hours tomorrow will be the same as for a normal sitting Friday, with the House sitting from 9:30 a.m. and the moment of interruption at 2:30 p.m. Should any urgent questions be allowed, these would take place from 11 a.m. and the debate would resume following those urgent questions in the usual way. As I said earlier today in my business statement, I also join those who recognise the hard work and dedication of the staff of the House and of our civil servants. I thank them for their support to us in this place, and I'm very grateful to them in advance for their work tomorrow should this motion be agreed. As I said to the House during my business statement earlier today, the motion tabled by the Government this afternoon has been prepared in order that it complies with your ruling, Mr. Speaker, whilst also reflecting that the European Union will only agree to an extension to Article 50 until the 22nd of May if the withdrawal agreement is approved by 11 p.m. on the 29th of March. It's crucial, therefore, that we make every effort to give effect to the Council's decision, and tomorrow's motion gives Parliament the opportunity to secure that extension. I think we can all agree that we don't want to be in the situation of asking for another extension and facing the potential requirement of participating in European Parliament elections. I'll give way.
Could she just read out the motion so that we know what we're going to be debating tomorrow?
Well, I can say to the honourable gentleman that the motion has been tabled and he'll be able to receive it in the table office. I'm happy to read out. It is quite lengthy, so if honourable members will bear with me. That this House notes the European Council decision of the 22nd of March 2019, taken in agreement with the United Kingdom, extending the period under Article 53 of the Treaty on European Union, which provides for an extension to the Article 50 period to the 22nd of May 2019, only if the House of Commons approves the withdrawal agreement by the 29th of March 2019. Notes that if the House does not do so by that date, the Article 50 period will only, as a matter of law, be extended to the 12th of April 2019, and that any extension beyond the 22nd of May 2019 would require the UK to bring forward the necessary day of poll order to hold elections to the European Parliament. Notes that Article 184 of the Withdrawal Agreement refers to the political declaration between the UK and EU agreed on the 25th of November 2018, but that the EU has stated it remains open to negotiating changes to the political declaration. Notes that the House is currently undertaking deliberations to identify whether there is a design for the future relationship that commands its support. Notes that even should changes be sought to the political declaration, leaving the European Union with a deal still requires the withdrawal agreement. Declares that it wishes to leave the EU with an agreement as soon as possible and does not wish to have a longer extension. Therefore, approves the withdrawal agreement, the joint instrument and the unilateral declaration laid before the House on the 11th of March 2019 so that the UK can leave the EU on the 22nd of May 2019. Notes that this approval does not by itself meet the requirements of Section 13(1)(b) of the European Union Withdrawal Act, and resolves that it is content to proceed to the next steps of this process, including fulfilling Section 13 of this Act.
Okay, so you heard there from Andrea Leadsom, who was explaining more detail on what's being proposed for tomorrow's motion. One of the things that has come out of this this odd turn of events today is that the government is attempting to split the agreement that it's made with the European Union into two parts. That could be problematic, as I'll come back to in a moment. But one thing that seems obvious from Ms Leadsom's comments is that the Brexit vote has to be tomorrow. Otherwise, the extension possibility to May will not come into effect. If they don't vote on this tomorrow and it doesn't pass tomorrow, then we'll be held to a deadline of the 12th of April in which to find another solution. Now, on the back of this, it's worth remembering that on the 14th of January, when the Prime Minister was pleading with MPs to back her deal the first time around, she told the Commons, and I'll quote, that there was absolute clarity on the explicit linkage between the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration. She went on saying that the link between the two documents means that the commitments of one cannot be banked without the commitments of the other. And the EU has been clear that they come as a package. Now, it seems from today's developments that that is no longer the case, that the Conservative government is planning to break the terms of this agreement by splitting the agreement into the two parts, into the exit agreement, which deals with the divorce settlement between the United Kingdom and the EU, and the political declaration on a future relationship between the European Union and the United Kingdom. So it is a little bit of a risky gambit by the British government to do this. However, it seems that that John Bercow has capitulated on his original objections to the third reading and the third vote on this. But it seems that tomorrow is quite literally the last day that this can be done. This is the last chance saloon for Mrs May's third reading of her Brexit agreement. She's also promised that if she is supported and the Brexit agreement that she's negotiated is approved by Parliament in the vote, that she will resign, and we face the prospect of the election of a new Tory leader and possibly a new cabinet to lead the remaining negotiations with the European Union. But that is, of course, assuming that the European Union accepts the fact that this agreement and the withdrawal agreement and the declaration have been separated in this way, when it specifically says that the two documents come as a package. Now to other news. Oliver Letwin has today said that no-deal Brexit on April the 12th is now the most likely outcome for the United Kingdom. Letwin, the Tory MP and former minister who brought forward yesterday's indicative votes in motion in Parliament, has said that he believes a no-deal Brexit on April the 12th is the most likely scenario facing Britain now. Speaking on BBC Radio this morning, he said, "I think at some point or other, we either have to get a deal across the line or accept that we'll have to find an alternative if we want to avoid a no-deal Brexit on April the 12th, which I think at the moment is the most likely thing to happen. If Britain wants to hold a referendum or an election, it would need to delay Brexit by at least several months, but it is unclear if Parliament would vote for such a long extension." Okay, so leaving Brexit now for the time being, but not quite. There is now an update on the no-deal Brexit medicine supplies. Health professionals have been given further notice on preparations for a no-deal Brexit from Dr. Catherine Calderwood, the Chief Medical Officer, and Dr. Rosemary Parr, the Chief Pharmaceutical Officer. The joint letter outlines preparations being made to enable the NHS to respond to and manage medicine shortages if the UK leaves the EU without a deal, as well as the support that will be given to prescribers and pharmacists. The main points of the advice are this. The Scottish Government is working with all the other UK administrations to make sure that people receive the medicines that they need and other medical supplies as they need them, as far as possible if the UK leaves the EU without a deal. Pharmaceutical companies have stockpiled medicines, and across the UK and the NHS, across the UK, the NHS has stockpiled other medical supplies like medical devices and clinical consumables. Arrangements are also being made to transport into the UK, including by air, items that cannot be stockpiled. The UK government has stated that if there are delays at the UK border, medical supplies will be given priority entry into the UK. Members of the public, GPs, community pharmacies and hospitals should not stockpile. Shortages may occur, but the NHS will manage the situation and, if necessary, provide suitable alternatives or other treatment while the supply is restored to normal levels. Now, related to this is a story from the other side of the English Channel, in fact in Germany. Germany has warned of medical product shortages if there is a chaotic Brexit. Germany could face shortages of medical products by mid-April if Britain makes a chaotic withdrawal of the EU. The German Business Daily Handelsblatt said on Thursday, citing a letter by the Health Minister Jens Spahn to the EU Commission. Tens of thousands of medical products could lose their approval if no practicable procedures were found, Spahn added, according to the paper. Okay, so hopefully we will be moving on from Brexit-related stories. And we're moving on to the Tories failing to do the day job as the ministerial roles have been left vacant. The SNP has said the Tories are completely failing to do the day job as the UK government collapses into crisis and chaos. And key ministerial roles have been left vacant for weeks. The Tory Vice Chairman, James Cleverly, has been forced to admit that Theresa May has not replaced Sarah Newton, who resigned as Minister for Disabled People 2 weeks ago on the 13th of March, because the UK government fears that further resignations and reshuffles may happen. In total, 4 ministerial posts and 11 ministerial aid roles remain unfilled, and this follows 39 resignations from Theresa May's government since the 2017 election, including the resignation of 17 ministers over Brexit since June 2018. Commenting, the SNP Work and Pensions spokesperson Neil Gray MP said, "The Tories are completely failing to do the day job as Theresa May's government collapses into crisis and chaos at the expense of the whole country. At a time when Scotland and the UK face the greatest threat to jobs and living standards with Brexit, the Tories are selfishly focused on their own narrow party interests and bitter internal divisions. This government is a joke, and the people of Scotland are looking on in horror. It's clearer than ever now that Westminster is incapable of standing up for Scotland, and the only way to properly protect our interests is with independence." Also today, the UK Consumer Sentiment Survey has revealed that consumer sentiment has fallen to a 5-year low. In March, consumer sentiment in the UK fell to its lowest point in more than 5 years, according to a European Commission survey of EU businesses and consumer confidence. In the month the country was due to leave the European Union, the index for consumer sentiment in Britain dropped by 11.7 points in March, from minus 10.8 in February and minus 11.3 in January. And the reading was the lowest since November 2013. UK households' views of their financial situation and the state of the economy in the past and in the future have worsened. Over the past year, there has been a reduction in major household purchases, and planned purchases are also being put on hold over the next 12 months. This reflecting the general mood of consumers in the UK in general, who are keeping a tight grip on the purse strings while they ride out Brexit and find out what is going to happen next. And now to more international news, and this is a story concerning India. After testing the use of ground-to-space missiles to shoot down one of its own satellites in low Earth orbit on Wednesday, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said his country's first test of such weaponry was a breakthrough, which established India as a military space power. India is the 4th country to set a test on ASATs, or anti-satellite weapon systems, after the United States, Russia and China. Speaking on television, Mr. Modi, who faces general elections next month, said, "Our scientists shot down a live satellite 300 kilometres away in space in low Earth orbit." He went on to say, "India registered its name now as a space power." Anti-satellite can be deployed to attack enemy satellites, to disrupt communications and destroy military or civilian satellite infrastructure, as well as providing a technology base for intercepting ballistic missiles. This type of weapon has raised fears of a Star Wars type arms race. Indian and US governments have been in communication during the test. China's foreign ministry said it hoped all countries can earnestly protect lasting peace and tranquility in space. Russia declined to comment on the Indian ASAT tests. Pakistan said peace is the common heritage of mankind, and every nation has the responsibility to avoid actions that can lead to the militarization of this arena. The test follows last month's clashes between India and Pakistan following a suicide bombing in the disputed Kashmir region. Okay, moving along. So, and now to a story on social media. Facebook is to ban white nationalism and white supremacist content. Facebook have banned praise, support and representation of white nationalism or white separatism. The move comes as a response to the massacre of 50 people in mosques in New Zealand earlier this month, which was live streamed to the Facebook platform. Facebook has beefed up its content monitoring teams and taken down event pages that were used to promote and organise rallies by white supremacist groups. Twitter, YouTube and Facebook have been under pressure to remove white supremacist and neo-Nazi content from their platforms, along with fake news and other types of abusive posts. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who has called for social media platforms to be accountable for what users post, said material covered by the measures should arguably already be banned under Facebook's hate speech rules. Speaking at a media conference in Christchurch on Thursday, Mr. Ardern went on to say, "I'm pleased to see that they are including it and they have taken that step, but I still think there is a conversation to be had with the international community about whether or not enough has been done. Okay, now back to home again, back to England, in fact, and 3 former Labour Party members have been arrested over alleged hate crimes. The Metropolitan Police have made 3 arrests in an investigation prompted by a dossier detailing anti-Semitic social media messages allegedly posted by Labour Party members. In a statement, Scotland Yard said that 2 men and a woman had been arrested over the course of March on suspicion of publishing and distributing material likely to stir up racial hatred. Each has been released pending further inquiries. It's understood that the people arrested were Labour members or suspended from the party at the time the complaint was made, but are no longer members. The investigation was launched after the radio station LBC handed over the leaked dossier to the Metropolitan Commissioner Cressida Dick following an interview in September 2018. A Labour Party spokesman said, "We welcome the police investigating these individuals' alleged crimes. Anti-Semitism has no place in our society, and we are committed to challenging and campaigning against it in all its forms." And so, more on the anti-Semitism row in Labour, adding more fuel to the fire if it was needed. And now to Scotland and some better news today. It's been revealed today that renewable electricity generated in Scotland is now at record levels. Renewable electricity generation in Scotland reached record levels in 2018, the latest figures from the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy shows. Generation in Scotland was 26,708 gigawatts. That's a 6.1% increase on the previous record in 2017. This output of electricity is the equivalent of powering all the households in Scotland for more than 2.5 years. The latest statistics also show that the growth of Scotland's renewable electricity capacity continues, rising from 10 gigawatts in 2017 to 10.9 gigawatts in 2018. 2018 also saw a big increase in the electricity generated via offshore wind, with the capacity and generation more than doubling compared to 2017. Generation increased from 616 gigawatts in 2017 to 1,369 gigawatts in 2018. Capacity has increased from 246 megawatts to 623 megawatts. It was also a record year for electricity exports in Scotland. Net exports have almost doubled from 12,868 gigawatts in 2017 to 24,379 gigawatts in 2018. In commenting, Scotland's Energy Minister Paul Wheelhouse said, "These figures show Scotland's renewable energy sector continues to go from strength to strength. Last year, we were able to meet the equivalent of 74.6% of our electricity demand from renewable sources alone. During periods of low demand in Scotland, we were able to export record levels with a net of 24,379 gigawatts of electricity being exported in 2018. Last year, we saw the growing importance of offshore wind and their capacity and generation more than doubling compared to 2017, with further projects under construction. Despite damaging policy changes from the UK government since 2015, particularly in terms of the impacts on onshore wind, we continue to provide strong support for Scotland's renewable energy sector." And lastly tonight, fostering and adoption services in Scotland are continuing to perform well according to the Care Inspectorate. A new report published today showed that the quality of care experienced by children accessing fostering and adoption was high, with 97% graded good or better at inspection. The Care Inspectorate regulates 13,500 care services in Scotland, including 38 adoption and 60 fostering services. These are provided by the local authority and the voluntary and not-for-profit sectors. Peter MacLeod, the Chief Executive of the Care Inspectorate, said, "Our job is to work closely with the local authorities and independent organisations who provide adoption and fostering services. These services play a vital role in assessing and approving the supporting carers and prospective adoptive parents in caring for some of our most vulnerable children. From our inspections, we know that the vast majority of these services perform very well. We are also well aware that the of the tremendous work that has gone on across the sector to innovate and to make a real difference to the lives of children. By highlighting good practice and identifying areas which we can improve, we help ensure that all children get the best possible start in life. We also know that more high-quality fostering and adoption places are needed for vulnerable children, and that too many children are separated from their siblings when a place is found for them. It's important that children in care are supported to form permanent and loving relationships as quickly as possible. And a very important part of this is almost always maintaining the strong bond between siblings. Sisters and brothers are often a great support and comfort at times of crisis, especially for young children. The SNP's Children Minister, Marie Todd, said, "I welcome this positive report, which shows the number of adopted, looked-after children continues to increase year on year. Scotland's adoption register was established to increase adoption, particularly those who are more difficult to place. And it's giving even more children the chance to build the meaningful relationships that so many of us take for granted. Similar numbers of families are receiving post-adoption support as last year, and we know that more is important for many families that need that financial support. I'm also pleased to see the vast majority of adoption services and foster care providers are rated as good or better, which will help improve the long-term outcomes for children across Scotland." And that concludes Scotland at 7 this evening. I'll be back with Scotland at 7 again next Thursday, but until then, from all of us here at Broadcasting Scotland and Scotland at 7's team, a good night to you.